G'day.
Are you doing the challenge?
No, I just did weights this morning, didn't even go in. Sore shoulder, sore knee, sore forearm.
I'm good.
Audio level, David Crisafulli with Tim Mander, testing 1, 2, 3. The LNP can today reveal a cut to the front line here at Ferny Grove Station that is deeply troubling. Whistleblowers have informed us that the number of full-time frontline staff has gone from 52 in 2015 when the government came to office to just 48 today. That's a decrease of 4 officers, or around 8%, over the last 8 years. Can you believe it? In the middle of a youth crime epidemic, we've had laws watered down and fewer police on the front line. Is it any wonder crime is out of control? This information has come to us because frontline staff feel completely helpless that the government won't front up and be honest about the true situation on the ground. We are now months overdue when it comes to seeing the workforce data that the government should present. That information should be current as of today for the September quarter, and yet still we have seen nothing. So it's up to brave whistleblowers to blow the whistle on the government's true state of affairs. And I want people to think about what this means in real terms. The population has exploded in our city and our suburbs. Crime has never been a bigger issue for Queenslanders, and yet there are fewer police on the front line at key stations like this. It's time for the government to face up to the fact that police numbers have not kept pace with the growth of population. The commitment to add 1,450 officers made before the last election is in absolute tatters. The government is barely keeping pace with what we have. And at a key station like this, to see it go backwards by such a large number over 8 years shows a complete inability to plan, deliver and evaluate the frontline services that Queenslanders need. Tim represents the local area and a couple of his suburbs impacted by this, and we'll ask him to say some words.
Well, thanks, David. The Premier seems to want to speak about anything else but the current youth crime crisis. The Premier needs to stop stringing Queenslanders along and get real about cop numbers. To think that the number of police have been reduced in my local area beggars belief. Over the last few years, theft has doubled in this area and car theft has increased by 33%. I have people come into my office that are experiencing youth crime in particular for the first time ever. So the Premier needs to realise that this crime problem goes from Cooktown down to the Gold Coast and in my local area, and my locals have had enough. Now, while I'm here, I'd like to also speak about the housing crisis that we have in my role as Shadow Housing Minister. Today we hear alarming reports about rent increases. The reason that rent is increasing for those Queenslanders is because simply we do not have enough houses. We have not had enough land releases to build houses. We don't have enough social housing properties. We don't have enough affordable housing properties. And the LNP has been giving solutions about this issue for years. We must mobilise the community housing sector, a sector that is ready and waiting to join the quest to build more houses. We must release more land. We must have faster processing of development applications. We must have leadership in this area, which we simply don't have at the moment. In the meantime, Queenslanders struggling with cost of living now have these incredible rental increases, which everybody is feeling on a day-to-day basis.
Tim, can I just ask a quick question? What have the whistleblowers told you? Are they worried for their own safety, and are they worried for the safety of the people they serve?
We're talking about the police numbers. Well, the whistleblowers are saying that the numbers that the government continues to put out, which are about approved numbers, are not reality. The reality is that there's been a reduction, and here's a classic example. An 8% decrease in a police district that covers much of the northwest of Brisbane is alarming. And so when I have people coming into my office talking about the home invasions, talking about their cars being stolen, is it any wonder when the police numbers are less than what they should be? So it's deception. It's simply wrong to deceive Queenslanders this way, and unfortunately the reality is that it's affecting our crime rates.
So the events in Townsville, what would the LNP do differently right now?
Consequences for action. Unshackle the judiciary by removing the ridiculous notion of detention as a last resort, and gold standard early intervention. There's three things that you could do immediately to actually start turning around a generation of repeat hardcore young offenders, because we've got an issue to deal with both in the short and the long term. So in the short term, you've got a generation that now believe that the law just doesn't apply to them. The people tasked with enforcing the law are now the victims of the watered down laws. How did we get to there? In the long term though, how can we turn around the next generation of crims before they get to that stage? Because you've had 8 years of them looking and seeing, and you have a pipeline that is ready-made. And the number of repeat hardcore offenders in this state has gone from 10% to 17%, and it is growing every day. So we have to deal with two problems, the here and now and the long term.
It's probably inevitable that we will need more watch houses, more detention spaces. Right now, the police are saying that they are struggling with watch houses until they're having to leave their own district and where do you start?
By acknowledging that something has to be done and that the community deserves to be kept safe. And there's two elements to this. Firstly, the government was warned in 2018 that this would happen. And they said that they would end the watch house crime crisis that was happening there, and some of the things that we have seen come out of that were troubling. The government knew that and had 5 years to plan and deliver new places to house people when they offend, and they failed on that. Having done that, we have an issue in the here and now, and that issue is how can we send a message to the next generation that there isn't going to be this easy ride of being able to ram police and get away with it. And that will stop that pipeline coming through. There is no doubt, though, that right now we have a crisis both inside and outside watch houses. And that must be troubling for every Queenslander to absorb.
Can I ask a question about the copper string project?
Sure.
Do you welcome the government's $5 billion costing has doubled? Is that right?
Well, our Shadow Energy Minister is in Townsville today, and Pat Weir will respond to that. I've asked him to look at the announcement and come forward. Thank you. Thanks all. Thank you very much. Thank you.